friends. I am Vitaly Portnikov. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused Russia of preparing for a new attack on yet another European country. Which one exactly? Today no one knows. And it is these plans that explain the constant appearance of drones in the airspace of European countries. Zelensky's conclusion is supported not only by Russian actions, but also by Russian words. As is known at the latest meeting of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, President Putin threatened European countries with so-called military technical measures if they continue their policy of supporting Ukraine in our resistance to Russian aggression. Military technical measures are a rather well-known term from Putin's vocabulary. This is exactly what Putin spoke about on the eve of the large-scale attack on Ukraine. And today, the head of Russia's foreign ministry, Sergei Lavrov, publicly accused Germany of militarization and even renazification. He compared the goals of the current German government to the political plans of Adolf Hitler, drawing a controversial historical parallel. Sergei Lavrov also spoke disparagingly about Great Britain, emphasizing that this country is constantly trying to create problems for Russia. And this rhetoric of Sergei Lavrov is very reminiscent not even of the speeches of Soviet Foreign Minister Andrei Gromyko, but of the speeches of Stalin's People's Commissar for Foreign Affairs, Vyacheslav Molotov, on the eve of World War II, when the loyal associate of the communist leader threatened European countries with war and occupation, which is exactly what happened to Finland and the Baltic countries, and after World War II led to the de facto occupation of Central European countries by Stalin's Soviet Union. So I wouldn't dismiss Sergei Lavrov's statements, because when the Russians say that someone is preparing to attack them, someone is militarizing, or someone is creating problems for them, it means they are making plans for their own attack on certain countries and are thus justifying their readiness to go to war. As for the question of whether Russians want war, I think we have long since received an absolutely clear and obvious answer. Yes, they do. Yes, always. And it is not only words, but also the actions of the Russian political leadership that demonstrate this preparation for a possible large-scale war on the European continent. Precisely because the Russians may now genuinely believe that the United States will not adequately defend the entirety of Europe from their potential invasion, they are actively making comprehensive plans to significantly escalate the already tense situation on the European continent, and are at the very least ready to meticulously take the initial reconnaissance steps in this concerning direction. We have already discussed and talked enough about the increasingly complex and alarming situation with the drones in the Polish airspace, which is a clear indicator of these escalating tensions. And today, President Zelensky himself clearly emphasized that as many as 90 of these Russian unmanned aerial vehicles were specifically directed toward our neighboring country. However, the vast majority of these drones were successfully intercepted by the Ukrainian air defense system. And this is yet another argument in favor of creating a joint air defense system between Ukraine and Poland over the western regions of our country and the eastern voivodeships of Poland. It is also important to understand that Russian aggression is directed toward other European countries as well. Every single day, we consistently hear numerous reports about various drones appearing in the sovereign airspace of Denmark. Today, it also became widely known and publicly acknowledged that these unmanned aerial vehicles, these drones, were indeed flying over sensitive military facilities in Denmark and also in other European countries, causing significant concern. And thus, the significant question arose as to precisely where these unmanned aerial vehicles or drones are actually being launched from, and furthermore, how various European countries will be adequately prepared to effectively stop their rather rapid and concerning spread, which is already being widely reported from the bustling capitals of several prominent European countries all at once. And it is quite obvious that this alarming list of affected regions will only continue to steadily grow in the foreseeable future. It is likely that Russia is also trying to increase tensions ahead of the European Union summit, which will take place in the Danish capital, Copenhagen. It is in Putin's interest for European leaders to arrive at this meeting frightened by what might happen soon, and for them to realize the necessity of abandoning their policy of supporting Ukraine precisely at the moment when the President of the United States, Donald Trump, is placing the responsibility for helping Ukraine in the Russian-Ukrainian war on Europe, and even believes that this assistance could lead to the liberation of those territories occupied by the relentless Russian horde. And from this point of view, of course, it is very logical to frighten the Europeans and at least force them to focus on their own defense instead of helping our country resist Russian aggression. This too may be part of the plan for Ukraine's capitulation, which Putin continues to dream about and which he keeps as the main political goal of his presidency, at least for the foreseeable future. Thus, we can be certain that drones will continue to appear in the airspace of European countries, that Russian aircraft will intrude into the airspace of neighboring states, even if NATO characterizes their appearance as a navigational error rather than a deliberate provocation by the Russian political and military leadership. It is expected that Russian Navy submarines will be strategically positioned much closer to the territorial waters and maritime boundaries of various NATO member countries. This deliberate deployment will utilize their very visible and imposing presence as a direct means to intimidate and exert psychological pressure upon the populations and citizens across the European continent. And that Russian propaganda sabotage and accusations against European countries claiming that they are the ones preparing for war with the Russian Federation will also intensify with each passing day of the Russian-Ukrainian war, which in the end is absolutely logical. If the aggressor cannot achieve its goal, it tries to intimidate those who stand in the way of its inhumane plans. Thank you, friends. Stay on this channel and subscribe to it. Subscribe to my social media channels on Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, Donatella, which helps support these resources. Use the sponsorship feature right here on YouTube. Wishing you victory and peace. Good luck.